Welcome to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. Here's your host, the Bitcoin Boomer himself, Gary Leland.
And welcome to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. Now, let me explain this real quick. I'm a boomer. The show's about Bitcoin. That's why this is the Bitcoin Boomer Show, okay? It's not, I don't want you to falsely think this is a show about Bitcoin for boomers. This show is for anyone. I just happen to be the boomer, so it's the Bitcoin Boomer Show. So I like to get that out there so we don't lose anyone quickly because they go, oh, I'm not a boomer. You know, you don't have to be a boomer to like Bitcoin or to know about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of the greatest advances in technology we probably will have ever seen and probably will ever seen. This is the first currency ever created, ever, that was not centralized. That was decentralized. There's no home office for Bitcoin. So I do like to educate you about that. My great producer, Stephanie, is here. Stephanie, you set up the appointments with the people that we were interviewing. You set up the appointment with John. What'd you think? Anything in particular you wanted to get into?
I saw in his bio on his website, Atomic, that he had a really cool life before he was in the Army. He was in the firefighter. I have a cousin that's interested in being a firefighter, so I'm curious about that story.
Well, I didn't even know that he was a firefighter, so thanks for highlighting me so we can ask that. But yeah, let's find out what that was like, how long he was a firefighter, where he was at, and what other things as well. And I say this a lot during the show, and I do want to make sure you understand. My whole goal here with this show, the only goal I have is to teach you about Bitcoin. Don't want to sell you any. Don't want your Bitcoin. Well, I take your Bitcoin. Give it to me, but I'm not asking for your Bitcoin. I'm not going to have anything where you send me one Bitcoin, I'll send you two back. And if you don't know, by the way, that's always a scam. Okay? No one's going to send you two Bitcoin for sending them a Bitcoin. I see those all the time on YouTube is why I bring that up. So if you ever see one, or if you ever see someone that looks like me, asking for your Bitcoin. I have a ton of scammers who come up. I see them all the time. People are reporting to me saying, send me your Bitcoin and I'll help you out. I'm never going to post send me your Bitcoin, and I'm never going to help you out by giving you Bitcoin. So I might help you out if I see you on the side of the road or you're a friend of mine, but I'm not sending you Bitcoin. So do not pay attention to those. If you see anyone looking like my profile, saying they're Gary Leland, asking you to send Bitcoin, you don't even need to ask me. Report them to whoever, to Facebook, Twitter, wherever it's at, okay? Now, we'll be right back with John after these words from our sponsor, so please stay tuned. I think we're going to have a fun show today because John is a great guy to talk with. We'll see you in just a minute. And welcome back to the show. You know, there's one thing I always like to tell people who are going to watch the show, or who are watching the show, or listening to the show, or however you're consuming the content. This show is only to educate you about Bitcoin. I don't have any Bitcoin I'm going to come up with during halfway through this show trying to sell you. I'm not going to tell you where to go get your Bitcoin. I just want you to know what Bitcoin is. And during these times we're having right now, when Bitcoins are reaching all-time highs, I think you need to start finding out what Bitcoin is if you don't know already. So let's go with the show. And today we have John Sostak. John, welcome to the show. John's with Atomic. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm wonderful, Gary. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I love it. I love all your guests. It's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to thank you for coming in to BitBlock Boom as a sponsor. You've worked or been associated with our BitBlock Boom sponsor for the last 2 years, and this year you have stepped it up to the silver sponsorship. So I do appreciate that. John, before we go any further, how about give everybody a little short bio about yourself?
Yeah, definitely, and you know, being involved with BitBlock Boom is an honor. You've got this conference is special, so I could go on and on about how and why, but you know, just to get to the point, I've been in Bitcoin for about 10 years now. I come from the mining side of it, and prior to this, you know, I've got kind of a combination background. Like part of my adult life has been in public service, the other part has been in B2B and in a blue collar way. So I'm an Army veteran. I'm a retired Chicago firefighter. I I moved to Texas 3 years ago, and I've been in Bitcoin mining since 2015, and just started. I've always been in sales and entrepreneurial, and we just started Atomic about 2 years ago. Got it from concept to funding, took about a year and a half, and now we're getting ready to roll this platform out. It's pretty simple. It's a hash market, so miners have an opportunity to earn a premium rather than mining to a mining pool. We broker out their hashing, sell it to people who use it to either capture Bitcoin or do development, on Bitcoin, like people who require SHA-256 to be able to, see whether or not the things they're building are actually functional inside of the Bitcoin ecosystem. But I am when I discovered Bitcoin, it becomes an obsession, and a lot of people, when they go down that rabbit hole, they don't come out. And I have not come out. I've only gone deeper and deeper.
Well, that's what happens with that rabbit hole. Once you really step into the rabbit hole, your mind actually expands, I believe, and you start wanting to know things that you thought you knew, but all of a sudden, from going down this rabbit hole, you realize you don't know. And like, what is money? I didn't even know the word fiat. When I got into Bitcoin, I was like, what is fiat? There were so many terms. I now remember when I was listening to podcasts at first about Bitcoin, there were so many terms that I didn't know that word. That I keep going, I never heard that word before. I'd say it over. I said, well, one thing about it, I'm learning a lot of new words, because there are a lot of terms in Bitcoin that we use that the regular population doesn't know. One of the things Stephanie, our producer, wanted to know was about your firefighting, so I'm bringing that up. How long were you doing that?
20 years.
Oh.
Yeah, 20 years, and I got on the fire department in 1999, so January of 99, and it was a wonderful, wonderful career. I mean, I don't think outside of being an entrepreneur where you have two families, you have your family at home and then you have your family in your business. Outside of that third family is that public service family, and the Chicago Fire Department and firemen in general are like dear family. And you everything is altruistic when it comes to a fireman. There's nothing about a firefighter that takes. In fact, the majority of firemen in the country are volunteers. A lot of people don't know this, but people who come from small towns and the majority of America know that their dad, their uncle, their neighbor, they volunteer. And then those of us fortunate enough to, be able to get on a city fire department, I mean, there's very few honors greater than that. So ultimately, public service, as you get older, you get farther away from the reward, your body starts to talk to you. And then also you go down that Bitcoin rabbit hole and you start to make decisions that take you away from it. And I really think we should rename the Bitcoin rabbit hole the Honey Badger hole, because it don't give a shit. You're going down and you're never going to come out.
That's a good point.
I've been on a similar journey as you, Gary.
That's a good point, the Honey Badger hole. We have Dom Bay speaking this year at BitBlock Boom. I believe he's a fireman. Working with other firemen companies or other groups of firemen to bring Bitcoin into their retirement funds and stuff. So that's pretty interesting.
God bless them. I want we're gonna have to share a cup of coffee over there and discuss this together.
Yeah. He seems to be a really good guy. I've never met him in person, but from talking to him online. So let me ask you this. What do you think about, I know you could talk about this for a while, so I'm doing this quickly. What do you think about us breaking the record yesterday for the highest price of Bitcoin?
I think it's something we need to get used to. I think it will continue. This is not a one-off anymore. We're not going to see a pump and then a dump, because there's nothing to dump into. The dollar, and Paul gave minutes today, or he's doing it. I think we're on. I don't know when this airs. Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. They are keeping rates static. They're seeking a 2% inflation target still. And as they do that, I think Bitcoin only becomes more and more valuable. It's a foundational asset. It's the most valuable property in the world, and dollars are not. Dollars are a unit of account. That's all they are.
Yeah, I saw someone post this morning on Twitter. They were posting, maybe it's time to get out of Bitcoin. And someone posted, what are you going to put it in? I mean, what would you get out of Bitcoin? Especially if you've been in Bitcoin any length of time. I mean, I can see if you got into it yesterday and you're not hard and you don't have diamond hands. You may go, because that happens a lot. Oh, I'm losing all my money. I knew this was a fake, and they get out. But any person that's been in Bitcoin for a while is going to be going, what would I put it in? You know, I've gone through a lot of these, you know, ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs, but it always is more up than down. So what am I going to put it into? Dollars?
No. But you know, we are using it to gauge the value of Bitcoin because we do, like all fiat currencies, we require the issuance of the dollar to be able to transfer our Bitcoin into something that we require or need or want. You want that Lambo, you're probably going to convert the Bitcoin into dollars to get it. That's all it's there for. But if you take a look at all of the assets and properties that are available to us as investors for short and long term, Bitcoin is superior. Gold, you can't move it. You can't do anything with it. It's difficult. It's a challenge. Property is expensive. Property is highly illiquid. It's almost impossible to move. And the CRE is just getting wrecked by this inflationary environment with high rates. Stocks, they are valuable, and we're at all-time highs. I don't see a problem with that as a percentage of your portfolio, but it is not as valuable, not liquid. It's not permissionless. They cannot be transferred from me to you like I can with Bitcoin right now, and I have. So look at all of these things, and then consider treasuries and bonds. Those are donations. I mean, if you're inside of treasuries and bonds, you better don't take your eye off of them. So where do you want to go? Bitcoin wants you. Join us.
Yes, and I'm sick of people going, there's no use for Bitcoin except for drug lords. You paid for your sponsorship with Bitcoin. Worked perfectly fine. I had it minutes later. I had it minutes later. So my fees were zilch, you know, compared to transferring something else. Now we're going to take a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with John Sostak from Atomic. So do stay tuned. We got a great show for you today, and it's a great time for Bitcoin, breaking all-time highs. No telling what we're going to do by Christmas. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsor. And welcome back to the show. Hey, I do want to ask you to do me a favor. If you find this information helpful, or if you enjoy listening to Bitcoin content, or know someone who might benefit from learning about Bitcoin, whether they buy it or not, just having the knowledge can be a benefit. But if you do, please share this show with them. Share this show, help educate them on Bitcoin. I personally feel they're going to thank you for it someday, because this is something that's not going to be stopped. In my opinion. John, welcome back. Tell me real quick, how did you find out about Bitcoin? Because you said you found out about Bitcoin 10 years ago?
Yes, sir.
That's pretty early into Bitcoin. You were mining Bitcoin 10 years ago. Needless to say, I assume, since I wasn't mining Bitcoin 10 years ago, that you could still mine Bitcoin with GPUs at that time, instead of ASICs.
I was in the transition. Where you could not. And I'm going to fail the purity test here. So I actually started mining Litecoin, and I'm not proud of it. But the ASICs were being delivered. The ASICs,
John, I got to interrupt you there. I got to interrupt you there. And in all fairness to you, tell you, I was mining Zcash. You know, because I could mine that with GPUs. So I was mining Zcash in 2017 and converting it to Bitcoin because I couldn't mine Bitcoin. So you're not alone in mining some crap. I think a lot of us mined some crap last year. We were doing anything we could do.
Scent that's wafting through the studio right now.
Oh, it's terrible.
The smell of the streets of San Francisco.
It's terrible. At that point in time, I was not a Bitcoin maximalist. But go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to let you know you weren't alone. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, Yeah, it was a time where, again, the Bitcoin had taken off. And in 2014, what happened, the way I found it was we just had our first daughter, Clara, and I wasn't traveling. I wasn't doing conferences. I wasn't on the road. So I started day trading WTI. So I'm trading oil. I'm following the financial markets closely. I'm deep inside of the markets themselves. I'm going on, boards. I'm looking at zero hedge a lot, still do. And I'm following Bitcoin now. And then I watch a documentary about Bitcoin being used in hostels in San Francisco, ironically, because of my, vulgar joke. But I'm watching this and I'm intrigued. I think it's a joke. But then Mt. Gox runs into a problem. And Bitcoin does what I expected it would have done, what it should have done as an asset was with the fall of Mt. Gox, it goes up. So I'm watching that. It's legitimizing the property that Bitcoin is. And Coinbase had done a large raise. Coinbase was relevant, American. So I sent $5,000 to Coinbase, GDAX at the time, their exchange, and I bought my first Bitcoin in 2014. I realized at that point you can't trade this; it's all washed. There's no real positions you could take. It's not a tradable asset, and also it had crashed right around there too. And then of course that stage of grief when Bitcoin crashes is a minute for the tech. And that's when I learned how to mine. And I start watching mining videos on YouTube. And I got to be super grateful to Mike Carter, Bits Be Trippin. Watching his channel was teaching me how to mine. So I learned how to run 1060 graphics cards, flash BIOS, get it set up, point it, and start mining Litecoin and other, crap coins. But I was only in on Bitcoin. So almost immediately, I'm going to meetups in Chicago. I find people who are also into this, and we begin buying ASICs. So that's the origin of my moment coming into Bitcoin, and then from there, it's all in.
Well, it sounds very similar to my story, to be honest with you, except later, and I was mining Zcash instead of Litecoin, but I was watching Bits Be Trippin. That's where I learned to do everything. That guy had a lot of information to give you there, for sure. Hey, what?
Very generous man.
Very generous, and it was, like I said, his information, if you watched it, you could figure it out, but I never moved into ASICs. So I didn't have that. I wasn't into mining enough to move into ASICs. So I did GPU for a while, and then I got out of it. Hey, I have a question because you mentioned Coinbase. What in the hell is the deal with Coinbase? They've been going down whenever it gets super busy since 2018 and 17. This is nothing new. When I saw they went down earlier this week, Monday or whatever, it's like they hadn't figured out how to fix that yet. They've had 7 years, to work on it. I mean, is it that hard?
Well, I think the first way to fix this is you stop using Coinbase. Let's start with that. We start with get away from Coinbase. They're scoundrels that cannot be trusted. And I hate to say that about an American company, especially one that's traded publicly. I do not trust them. I will not use them. And I will tell us, I don't get paid for this. This is not me shilling for a company that I'm involved with beyond I use it. Everybody, please take a look at Strike. Go to Strike, go check out their app, look at what they're doing, because I'm using it on a business side, and it's pretty close to unbreakable. When Coinbase went down, Strike was up. I was using it at the exact time it was up. Coinbase has been doing this forever. I question, there's no technical reason why this would happen. I question the reasons behind it. They've got interior circuit breakers. Does someone tell them to pull them? We can all remember Robinhood with GameStop, and Citadel pulled that, and they made GameStop a sell-only asset. Now, that came under a lot of scrutiny because that is a publicly traded company on public markets. Bitcoin, for the most part, is not. It is attached to public ETFs and great American companies like Riot and Core Scientific, but there is no CEO of Bitcoin, and these exchanges are not. They're not nicey ice. They're not NASDAQ. So I think Coinbase is just doing whatever they're allowed to do whenever they need to. And I don't trust that they have enough Bitcoin if there's ever a Bitcoin Coinbase run. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, you're not the first person that has said this. And this has been said by people since 2017, basically, since that run up there. Every time, not every time, but a lot of times when Bitcoin gets up there and it's moving and it's cranking and you're going, oh my gosh, bam, Coinbase goes down. So you're not the first person to say this by any means. It's just odd that Coinbase goes down so much. And I agree. There's something weird about it. It can't be that there's stuff. They've had so long to fix this. It's got to be, I don't know that it is, but you almost feel like someone's pulling a switch and go, okay, let's shut this thing down and cool it off. And there's so many options now, though, compared to Coinbase. You've got, like you said, you have Strike, you got Cash App, you got River, you got Swap. You got Unchained Capital. There are a ton of places to buy Bitcoin. The last place you may want to consider is,
I'll tell you too, with Coinbase, unlike these great companies that you're telling us about, Swan, River, Unchained. These companies in our space have not only great reputations, but they've got legitimate missions. They got missions that they're on, which is to improve all of us, our wealth, and a byproduct of through our wealth, our business health. So these are great companies. Coinbase is stacking risk on top of risk on top of risk. If you're a Bitcoiner and you're using Coinbase for anything, they've got 100 other so-called assets that they've got commingled inside of your Bitcoin wealth. So be very careful. Be very careful. And I understand you need to, if you want to move Bitcoin, Coinbase will do it, and they do it well, usually when they don't go down. And you're not running Bitcoin that way through Swan or Unchained. And that's why I say look at Strike, because Strike, it moves. So there's no shortage of great Bitcoin companies. Please consider them.
Well, I have to agree with you also. There's so many options. It's not like it was 7, 8, 10 years ago. We'll be right back with more of John Sostak from Atomic right after this word from our sponsor. So please stay tuned. And welcome back to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. I'm Gary Leland, your host. Today we're joined by John Sostak from Atomic. John, welcome back to the show. Now, before we go any further, I have a question I ask everybody. And I get a lot of different answers. I get a lot of the same answer, but it's unusual some of the answers I do get, how different they are. So, John, tell me, according to John Sostak, what is Bitcoin?
I would say Bitcoin is property, and it's property that serves many purposes. And like property, you get to use it the way you prefer. But it is money, and I consider it the most valuable property. And as a byproduct of it being so valuable, fantastic money. And we could go into like semantics and terms and try to like define words, but let's really look at what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin has no boss, no owner. For all intents and purposes, it does not have a founder. Bitcoin is uniquely agnostic of everything and everyone around it, including Gary and myself. Bitcoin is also because of its nature of being open source to the point where anybody can contribute and nobody can control it individually. Gary and I could transact without anybody in between us. It happens in seconds. It happens without us having to be concerned about whether or not it's showing up on the ledger. And it is just probably one of the greatest ways to transact that I've ever seen, because we know what the value is. And what is the value of Bitcoin? You've got millions of machines pointing at this network, just operating with the hope of capturing a block of Bitcoin. And that right there is what Bitcoin is, and what makes it truly valuable is the size of the network, the contribution to the network, the ability to convert electricity and work into an asset that's on a permanent ledger, and it is scarce. There's 21 million of them. It's a finite asset. It's property. It's money. It's fantastic, and it's changed the world. It's changed my world, and I have a feeling it's going to change every single person in every single person in the world's financial status will be changed, whether they realize it or not. Because as an underlying asset, Bitcoin will be something that's quietly contributing to your net worth, just like 30-year bonds used to.
Well, that's a pretty good answer. Pretty detailed answer. One of the things we've been bringing up on this show more than we usually do, and that's because of your background, is mining. We really have gone into that quite a few times on the show, but not as much lately. Could you give everybody just a real short explanation of mining? Bitcoin mining. People may still not understand it, but just for those who are new to Bitcoin, they would have an idea of what we've been talking about.
Bitcoin mining, it can be typically done in your garage. That's where we all start. We all start in the basement or the garage, but it's grown, and now it's taken over a lot of data centers. And what it is not unlike conventional data centers where you have blade servers that are processing data and sharing it with the world. The Bitcoin network is made up of a bunch of servers that are called ASICs, and application-specific interface chips. They're running nonstop, and what they're doing is guessing numbers. And when they guess the right number that's issued by Bitcoin Core, they capture a block. There's approximately 144 blocks that are distributed each day. The blocks are 6 and change plus transaction fees. So when you capture a block, you're capturing, typically around 7 Bitcoin. And that is going to be cut in half in about a month and a half, mid to late January, right around, 420, because Bitcoin is wacky like that. But what you're doing as a miner is you're operating a facility with the lowest cost power. You're typically operating facilities that don't have redundancy. They don't have heavy requirements for atmosphere control, HVAC, and you're just pointing at Bitcoin, operating that network, securing the network, making sure that the network is functioning perfectly, and that's it. Oh, but as a miner too, you typically work in collaboration with many miners, and that gives you the ability to capture a block and share that block with them. And Atomic helps with that too. Atomic is not a mining pool, and that's what we call those, mining pools. But being able to send your mining to Atomic gives you the ability to then have the buyer send it to the pool of his choice, or self-mine. You could always mine for yourself and capture your own blocks. And CK has been doing that forever. He created CG Miner. He's a genius. And that's basically what mining is. It's not glamorous. It's not difficult, but there's just there's things that make it that give you an advantage, where if you have a power cost that's low enough and access to equipment and infrastructure, you can capture Bitcoin at a lower price than if you were buying it. So that's the whole reason why people do it.
So I want to make sure I understand. Let's get into Atomic a little bit now, since we've got that covered. Atomic, am I understanding this right? I want to make sure I understand, because I'm not 100% sure. If I was doing some mining, let's say I had 50 ASICs, 25 ASICs, whatever, I would contact Atomic to get my energy through Atomic. Is that correct?
Not really. What you would do is you would, just like if you have an ASIC right now and you're pointing it at Brains. Brains is a great Bitcoin company. You point it at Brains, and your hashing is used by them with a couple 100,000 other machines
Right.
to capture the block, and then they share it with you.
So Atomic is a mining pool.
It's a middleman to the mining pool. So
that's where I'm getting confused, I guess.
You pointed Atomic instead of Brains, and then the buyer comes to Atomic. He buys your hashing, pays you a little more than you would have made if you were mining for yourself, and then he sends it to Brains or anywhere he wants.
Okay, so
it's a hash market.
Yeah, you're reselling your hash rate.
So that as Bitcoin moves up and down, so does the revenue the miner earns and the payment that the buyer makes.
Okay, so you're reselling your hash rate instead of using it yourself. And then the buyer of your hash rate, of course, they're paying you. They decide what pool they want to use according to which they might feel is the most profitable. They could even switch it from one pool to another. If they said, this pool is sucking,
absolutely,
I'm going to switch over to this one. But you don't care what they're doing with them because you're being paid consistent, on your hash rate without having to do the mining. Are you paid in Bitcoin or fiat?
We pay the miners in what they choose, Bitcoin or fiat, USD. The buyers pay in dollars. They pay in USD only. And an interesting thing is if you're using Atomic, and we're in MVP now, we're in testnet, we are operating, but we are not live yet. We will be live at your conference, and we will announce that then. But the interesting thing is if you're aggregating hashing and you want to capture a block and tomorrow or typically every 2 weeks, the difficulty rate is going to go up. You're collecting hashing. You want to capture a block or two before then. You could use Atomic to do that. And now you're operating it where it's benefiting your overall ability to capture blocks. And you might not even be going to a mining pool for that. You might be doing it yourself. And I do foresee that this will give mining itself an ability to decentralize a little bit more because we've got a couple of mining pools that are really dominant. Foundry, Ant Pool, they have big slices of the Bitcoin mining pie. And that's something that concerns all of us because you never want to see any mining pool control close to 50% of the hashing. So with any luck, as people discover Atomic, they begin increasing their hashing and capturing their own blocks, like through Oceans. Oceans is great, but what Luke is doing over there, we're very grateful for what they're doing because anything that decentralizes mining is great.
Well, Ocean is also a sponsor of Block Boom this year. So we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor. More with John. And welcome back to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. I'm your host, Gary Leland. Today we're joined by John Sostak. John, let's get back on here. Okay, so now I understand exactly what Atomic does. I don't know where I was thinking this was, that shows how much background I did on it, I guess, so I apologize about that. So y'all are in testing mode now? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir. And you know what? Let me just real quick. Your and I backgrounds are very similar, so it makes sense. But I followed the mining side. You've followed the advocacy and influencing and building side. But both of us have. This is one of the things I really find exciting about Bitcoin, and I just wanted to share this before we go too far or finish this up. You don't have to be an investor to contribute to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is one of the most unique industries I've ever seen. And I'm not getting any younger. I've got 5 kids. Bitcoin is the only industry I've ever been around where you didn't get into this business because your father was in it. You didn't get into this business because your neighbor is in it or your uncle or your mother. You got into this business because it captured your attention and then it inspired you. And then we found each other. So Gary, you and I found each other. We do meetups. And then we discover where we want to be in here. And I want everybody, especially that's following you, because you're teaching, to understand you don't have to come in here with big money. You just have to come in here and do. The so-called plebs are doers. Get in here and do stuff inside of Bitcoin. Our arms are open. We want hugs. We want bodies. We want people. So please join us. And as you start to find your local meetup and go to like anything online, Gary Spaces. You're just going to learn, and you're going to discover where you want to be inside of this space. And we're going to welcome you. So I apologize for jumping in front of you on that, Gary.
That's great, and you are so right about that. Not everybody can contribute the same way, as I do, what I do, or what you do. I run into a lot of people doing the conference, John. I run into people like Surfer Jim, for instance. He's not a coder. He's not a miner, but he wants to contribute to Bitcoin. So what does he do? He volunteers at a ton of Bitcoin conferences. He's going to be there. He wants to do something to contribute. Like he'll be at BitBlock Boom. Last year he was there running the back for me. So I'm not back there. And that's what he does. If he's going to a conference, he's like in Nashville at Bitcoin Magazine, he's renting a car to be the Uber driver for people. And if someone says, hey, I need a ride at the airport, he'll pick up. But people all over the world are doing something, whatever they can, to help grow Bitcoin. And sure, if Bitcoin grows, yes, their stack is going to be more valuable, if it grows. But they're not doing it because they're going, oh, if I give this guy a ride from the airport, Bitcoin's going to go up $5,000. They're doing it to help the ecosystem, to do whatever they can to be part of it. That's how I feel about it.
I do too, and that's why BitBlock Boom is so special. You keep it small. There's 500 to 1,000 of us that are together. We see each other annually. Half of us are probably consistently coming. The other half are new, and they're in here because they're excited about this. And then we discover who stays and who goes. And just like any other industry, it's developing and growing and expanding, and opportunities are coming in. And if you're involved, you'll discover the opportunity that really, really you're attracted to. You've got an insider event. There's big outsider events. All of us contribute to meetups that are local and free. Austin Bit Devs, Austin Bitcoin Club, the Houston Bitcoin Mining Meetup, San Antonio Bitcoin Club, up in Dallas, the Texas Blockchain Council's always hosting stuff in Richardson. It's just jump in. So if you're watching this podcast and you're not in, keep watching, but get in.
And if you're in the Dallas area, join the BitBlock Boom meetup at meetup.com/BitBlockBoom.
Oh, definitely.
They're everywhere. I mean, people everywhere are working. And that's, to me, like I said earlier, it's not because they're worried about making more money. It's because they know, I personally think it's because they know Bitcoin is going to change the world. And they want to be able to sit back 20 years from now when the world's changed going, I helped change the world. I was one of the people who helped change the world, because that's what they're doing. They're doing something that's, like I said earlier, yeah, maybe their stack's going to grow, but they're not doing it because they think they're going to make an extra $500 off their stack. They're doing it to change the world. That's what I think.
I think so too, and I think there's the percentage that are traders and they're trying to increase their fiat position, and of course that there's no shortage of those people, but there's so many of us that this has become more than a job. This is a passion, and you watch a lot of these people in there. The advocacy that Michael Saylor does, that isn't to make himself richer. Saifuddin Amos, the passion that man has. I mean, that guy. Just read his books and watch him on Twitter. He's hilarious. These people are contributing. As Jimmy Song, he doesn't have to do what he's doing. All of these people that are doing this stuff, Mandrick showing up with baklava. Mm-hmm. These people are doing this because of passion.
All these people you've named, all of them have passion, and none of them need to be doing that. I talked to baklava the other day. And he said to me, Mandrick, he said, I like bringing baklava because people come up and talk to me and I get to meet new people and they want to have some baklava that I'm selling. Hey, we only have about 3.5 minutes left, so please give everybody the information, where to find Atomic, where to follow you, blah, 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 blah. Everything they need to know so they can keep up with what's going on, especially on Atomic, since you're going to be announcing that soon.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. If you can, follow us on X at Mine on Atomic. Our website is atomic.win. You could go there and sign up. You could create an account right now, but we have hashing coming in, and we'll contact you. Our target date for testing to be done. All we're doing is just testing the platform now and tweaking it, making sure that payments in and out work perfectly. So that's where we're at right now. We should be live for the public to create an account, deposit, buy hashing, or send your hashing to us by the first week of April. And if you follow us on X, you'll be the first to know. We'll share that. And if you follow me on X, I'm offensive, so please show some grace. Show some grace. I spurg sometimes.
That's funny. That's funny. Hey, you know what? I just want to tell you, thank you for coming on the show. It's been great. We really, see each other every year, sometimes more than once a year. I saw you in Fort Worth, and you were at BitBlock Boom, and I'll see you this year at BitBlock Boom, may see you in Nashville. But we really never sat down for a long time and talked, because every time I've seen you, I've been relatively busy. Even when I'm at a conference, I feel like I'm
you're
busy.
Always on the clock, and I'm always shilling or having a beer with somebody who I'm shilling too.
Yeah, so it's nice to actually, not that we're having a beer, but to sit down and talk. I do appreciate you coming on the show. Anything, you got about a minute left, anything you want to leave people with before we get out of here?
Just gratitude. I think a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this, where I catch myself going down that left-hand path every once in a while. And, we just had Super Tuesday, and you get caught up with like some of this media garbage. Ignore it. All the pills are not black. There are white pills out here, and there is some very, very amazing things happening. There's amazing opportunities. As dark as it looks, it's not that dark. It's actually pretty wonderful, as long as you're doing something that you're passionate about. I'm passionate about Bitcoin, but it could be anything. It could be anything. So if you want to be a carpenter, an electrician, a plumber, whatever it is, just be great at it. Have gratitude, and you'll discover that your passions have led you to something that benefits yourself, your family, and the people around you who need you. Like, all of us need each other. So be a good example, have gratitude. And I'm grateful for Gary and all the work you do.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, and appreciate those kind words, and all that information is great. It's been a great show. It's been great getting to sit down and talk with you and actually have a conversation instead of saying, hey, how you doing? Oh, and also, I don't know for sure that I told you, but thank you for that whiskey last year, that bottle of whiskey. And I appreciate that. That went to a good cause. And we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor. So please stay tuned. And welcome back to the show. We had a great conversation today with John Sostak of Atomic. Great information. I love John. He's a good guy. He's about as passionate about Bitcoin as I am, which some people say I'm a little too passionate about. Stephanie, what did you think of today's guest? Give us your thoughts from the peanut gallery over there.
Well, the peanut gallery is curious about the hash rate, or not hashtag, but hash thing, hash browns that y'all mentioned. I'm so sorry. This is me. I don't understand. So if you could, sure. I was curious about that. Like, that sounded very exciting. I just didn't quite understand.
No problem. It's part of mining, which is kind of complicated for people to begin with. But when you're mining, there's millions of machines all over the world that are mining. And what these millions of machines are doing all at one time, every 10 minutes, are guessing a number. That's all they're doing. They're just guessing a number at random. And sometimes it takes 12 minutes, sometimes it takes 1 minute, but they try to average 10 minutes. So the hash rate that miners are using is how many guesses they're making. So this, how many machines there are, how many guesses they're making, that basically is what the hash rate is. And it's weird for people to understand that mining is just machines guessing numbers to a mathematical formula. They're guessing answers to a mathematical formula. And whoever guesses, they aren't solving the formula, whoever guesses the answer first gets the Bitcoin for that 10 minutes, which is 6 1/4 Bitcoin right now. So that is what the hash rate is. Hey, before we go, I do want to make sure you know about our conference, bitblockboom.com. If you're in anywhere in the world, I had someone buy a ticket this morning from Australia. So if you are a Bitcoiner, check out bitblockboom.com. If you live in Dallas-Fort Worth, make sure and check out our monthly meetup at meetup.com/bitblockboom. Meetup.com/bitblockboom. It's a great place to go if you're in this area and talk about Bitcoin. I do want to make sure you know about the book I helped write with a bunch of us. 8 of us got together and wrote a book, Bitcoin and the American Dream. That's at bitblockboom.com/books. And also, please check out my Twitter account. Twitter.com/Gary Leland. Twitter.com/Gary Leland. Actually, you can follow me about everywhere. Just type in Gary Leland. I think I'm like the first 10 pages on Google. So check it out. Start following me. Share this show with your friends. Help us grow the show. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Like I said earlier, I enjoyed having John on the show. I can't wait to talk to him further. I can't believe as long as we've known each other, that's the most we've ever talked. We're going to have to change that. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you next week. And remember, to stack those sats. Have a good one.